This episode contains references to addiction, the sex trade, and suicide.
I'm Sergeant Angie Tetley.
And I'm Constable Brennan Martin.
Please join us while we find out why members of the Calgary Police Service have been called to serve. It feels weird. I feel a little nervous today.
Do you know what? It feels odd to be on this side of the counter, and we're going to explain why here soon enough.
Yeah, I'm excited. You're the special guest today. Welcome, Constable Brennan Martin, to Called to Serve.
Thank you, Sergeant Tetley.
You're welcome. Okay, so it started off in 2 District. Tell us a little, just sort of go through, I want to talk a little bit about 2 District and Alert and the beats, and then we're going to get into your story, which I think is really important.
Letterbuck, let's go.
You go. Tell us about 2 District.
2 District, awesome. Could hardly wait to get out there. I spent 6.5 years out there, got to take every call possible. Loved it. Patrol was exactly where I wanted to be. The day I got in the car, I knew that's exactly where I was supposed to be. Every day is completely different. You don't know what you're going to get. But most importantly, I got into the job and I was excited to go to patrol because I wanted to help people. And if that was in a motor vehicle collision, great. If grandma had her purse stolen, we're getting that purse back. We're going to find bad guy or bad girl. But my favorite thing of all time when I was there was drugs, because you can take the drugs, you can take the money. If you have to learn a few hard lessons as an investigator along the way, that's okay. Because guess what? You don't got to give back the money and drugs, and then you learn and then you move on.
So that's I love how you sort of segued into that, because it's you sort of come into this job, like you say, wanting to help people, right?
Yeah.
And then something, when you're on patrol, which everyone starts on patrol, you kind of learn and experience the kind of police officer that you want to be. So when you were on patrol, like you say, you sort of got an immediate interest in the drug world and stuff like that. And is that what led you to Alert?
Yeah, it was. At the time, I had a really good opportunity to go on a secondment. At the time, Sergeant Ryan Aliff, at the time now superintendent. Great guy, really mentored me and gave me an opportunity to try something different. And I learned that I really enjoyed the nerdy stuff about how different drugs are produced and made. Like the lion's share of our stuff was grow operations, which is now legal.
How do you feel about that? Like, do you think that's weird? Like, because you spent
weird.
So much time on the green team, like dismantling grow ops, and now it's legal, it's cool. Like, do you feel weird about that?
For Joe Blow on the street, it's like I have no problem with marijuana. There's a big, huge element of organized crime. They make money off of stuff that's not legal, and it's all tax-free money. So there's the marijuana grow-up stuff that we did, but we also did fentanyl labs. We also did meth labs. We also did ecstasy, GHB, all that kind of stuff. But the lion's share of it was grow-ops, but it was all associated to organized crime.
So you were briefly in GST.
Yep, for a year.
And then you were on the beats.
Yep, then straight to the beats.
Yeah, so tell me about the beats. Is that an acronym, or is it just walking the beats?
It's just walking the beats, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your time on the beats, what the mandate was, and I know that you got really sort of engaged and committed to the vulnerable population, because you're right there with them. So tell us a little bit about the beats.
Well, beats are an awesome gig to have, especially if you're super proactive. I like the fact that you weren't call driven, but the mandate was to deal with social disorder and respond to calls in the areas that you were working.
And you were downtown.
Yeah, that was all downtown. That's where, again, I was actually able to advance my drug education. So this isn't like the big commercial style of investigations. Now it's at the street level, and I quickly found out that addiction is an absolutely horrible thing to witness day in and day out. But when I first got down there in 2015, most people were either big users of alcohol, they were big users of methamphetamine, or they were big users of down or opiates, or in this case fentanyl. And it took a few years, but eventually they all kind of came together, and it was a really sad thing to see.
You are actually like walking around finding people who need help.
Yep.
And so when you turn corners and you come down the alley, like you're coming across these people who may be, in the throes of addiction, or who genuinely need help, like the actual vulnerable population.
My objective was to get to know the people as actual individuals, and I learned really quickly, Ange, that the population that I dealt with downtown, they sort of fall within 2 categories. Both categories are very addicted, and there's a consequence to that lifestyle. But on one side, there was the the addicted, the suffering people, men and women that were using drugs on a daily basis just not to get sick. So these aren't
Yeah.
behaviors where people are using it to get high and just to feel good and it's a party drug and they're all getting together. It's not like that at all. Rather, for example, once you get addicted to opiates, you now need a certain amount of that drug on a daily basis just to stop from feeling sick. So what would happen is the men and women would commit smaller offenses so that they could turn those offenses or the property into money and then therefore to be able to
like theft, like just stealing.
or car prowlings
Yeah.
or like stuff like that. All that sort of the small stuff, so they could turn that into money, which turns it into drugs, and then shortly thereafter it would repeat. So the hard part about that is that the men and women that are down there, especially the women, they live horrific lives, horrific. There isn't a female that I dealt with downtown that didn't resort to prostitution at one time. So on any given day. Like if it's in the summer, like a girl we're going to talk about later, her name's Amanda. She, I would see her when she's feeling better and she would have clothes on, like she'd be wearing some jeans and her hair in a ponytail or up the way that you do. Like she would just look just like you. And then a week later when I would see her, she'd be wearing sweatpants, a dirty shirt, no bra, no shoes, and she has an eye half closed shut from a bad date. And of course, she won't talk to me about it. But there's those people that have to suffer, and like the amount of suffering and trauma that these people experience on a daily basis is horrific. Now, where does a lot of that violence and trauma come from? Yes, there's from the Johns, from the ladies that have to use prostitution to feed their habit. But on the other side of that addicted group is a very violent group of people, typically men, and what they do is they prey on their own. So what normally has to happen is that these women have to connect themselves with street husbands so that they can survive the street. But as you can imagine, they're not loving, kind partners, right?
Right, yeah.
So I got to meet all those people, and I thought at the time, Ange, like, because my objective was to help in any way I can. I always told them, "Here's the cup. You can have whatever you want."
Yeah.
Was to get to know them as individuals, then get to know their stories. I would do background checks on them all. I would read all the reports so that I could better understand them as humans. My goal every single day was to see if I could help in a very meaningful way. And in some cases, it was just food, but my objective was off the street, in a safe place, in a secure area where they don't have to worry about, their personal protection.
So I think that working downtown, the amount of effort and genuine care that you put into these people is awesome. I actually also don't think that it's unusual. I think that a lot of our members, particularly downtown, where there are or District 4, where there's a lot of the vulnerable population, I think there's more members than we think that spend that time and energy and effort into building those relationships and learning about the people that we're dealing with every day. We know them by name, we know their habits, we know where they live, we know where they stay.
Yeah.
So it's awesome that you put so much time and effort and energy into
There are
the
tons
people.
of cops that do that.
I agree.
And the thing is, they do the stuff that I just described, plus they attend calls for service, which is their primary response.
Of course.
And so the amount of exposure to daily horrific trauma is immense.
So because you had spent so much time, how long were you on the beats for?
About 6.5 years.
Yeah, so a long time.
Yeah.
So in that 6.5 years, you're building relationships with people, you're learning about them, and like we talked about it before, like what was generally what happened to these people who you have built these relationships with?
So I am very sad to say that that they all die.
Yeah. Yeah, like you spend that time learning about them and learning about their families.
So there's one girl in particular. Her name's Amanda. She was the one that sort of started it all. And I still remember to the day I saw her on a curb. She's on the C train line. It's like June. And I walked by her and I was like, I have to talk to you. And then what ended up happening with her is that over the course of time, I got to hear her whole story.
Yeah.
I got to hear the fact that she had children in in the city, and that she was a poet. We sat and talked to her forever. And the really amazing outcome that day, and just to cut to the chase, is that we were able to get her into Reset, which is formerly known as Servants Anonymous. I called them up, and that day I explained the situation because Amanda had told me that she had survived on the street using prostitution as a means to survive, and that's essentially their mandate. And so because she wasn't consuming any opiates at the time, it was just methamphetamine, which unfortunately later changed. Anyway, we were able to get her in that day. And I remember just like high-fiving her on the couch, and I remember driving away telling Gino, the sergeant at the time, good old Gino Newcomb, Jedi Gino, that I was like, we did something good today. And I had left my information with her, and I was like, let me know how things go. Good luck to you. It was probably the first time in a long time that I'd felt that we had done something good. But anyway, that was one of like 3 or 4 times that we actually got her off the street.
Yeah, so you spent that time and energy like genuinely trying to help these people move on, you know, get through their addiction, get into a better place. So for 6 years, you've been sort of like hearing their stories, living like their vicarious trauma, you know, like, and you're starting to feel it. So tell us about the day it all changed.
Basically, because of my philosophy was that it's never an option to do nothing. If you see an opportunity to impact somebody's life, in my mind at that time, that's food, clothing, shelter, security. That was my objective. And because I'd been down there so long, everybody knew you had to give me my 10 minutes. And I won't name the partner that I had at the time, but she is awesome. AF, you know who I'm talking about. AP, actually. And anyway, it's a February. We are on the platform. We're on the beats. We're doing our thing, and we're walking along Center Street platform. Anyway, right where the train is there, just 1 block west of Olympic Plaza, and there's a big line of the vulnerable population, most of which I knew. One girl, her name was Cara Lee. She was nobody's victim, and I had saw another female sitting with her. It was a very cold day. Unfortunately, though, because I could only see the eyes.
Just because she's wearing a scarf or something.
Yeah, all the way up there. I'm pretty sure I saw her smoking. I went up and I saw Cara Lee, and I always saw her. She was one of the first vulnerable people that I met downtown in 2015. And so every time I saw her, I said, Cara Lee, Cara Lee, Cara Lee. Who do we got over here? And this girl that had been smoking, she looks up at me, and then she had half a puff of some kind of cigarette or whatever, and then she blew it out in the air. I'm like, gotcha. Now, because like she can't hold her breath forever.
Yeah.
But I didn't know her.
Because you're not allowed to smoke on the platform.
You're not allowed. It's bylaw, right? And again, what's my objective? To write tickets and get my 20? No. My job is to take care of the people, do my job downtown, but do it in an ethical and professional way to the best of my ability. So anyway, I start talking to her. And I was asking Cara Lee about her, and the young unidentified female, she told me that her name was Katana, and I'm like, well, that's not her name, because as you know, Ange, downtown, they all got street names, right? So eventually we learn all their street names, and then we figure out who they are and their actual real names. And I never ever enforced laws at the onset. I knew for a fact that if, for example, if she is with Cara Lee, I'm going to see her tomorrow. And this is an opportunity to have a good rep where we can have a good social interaction with the police. And then she'll find out down the road that she has to give me my 10 minutes, and then I'm going to find a way to help her and then all her friends. Right. That's the goal. It's all about grabbing all those starfish on the beach and throwing them back in the water. But anyway, so I was talking to her. She gave me a fake name, and I'm like, okay, whatever. I walked down the line. AP and I knew everybody else down the line, and then we continued on our walk along the beats, and then that was it. And it was. I should mention that it was about 5:30 in the evening, so it was already dark because it was February sometime or maybe January, and we just kept on our way, and that was that. Anyway, so I go on days off. And I open up the Old Man newspaper on the iPad, and I see a photo of a girl that says missing 11 days. And even though I saw the eyes, my stomach sank in that moment. And the second I looked at it, because your eyes are like fingerprints. When you get close to a person, they are the person. Like those are only Angela's eyes.
Yeah.
I would know who you are from a mile away.
Yeah.
So instantly, my stomach went flushed. My arms
Because
and
you
legs went numb.
recognized this person in the newspaper.
Yeah. And I was like, well, she's dead, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody that I've dealt with downtown, eventually they end up dead. And there's a bunch of stories that we aren't going to talk about today that that I've shared with you in the past, where you get to know these people, you get to know their stories, and then unfortunately they overdose, and it sucks. So in my mind, I was like, had I known that was her at the time, and again, like I don't know the identity, but I see the eyes, but I believe in my heart that this is the same person because I'm as close to her as I am to you, probably even a bit closer.
Yeah.
And my arms go numb, my legs go numb. I instantly become nauseous. The headache kicks in, and I don't know what's going on in my brain. Like it's
so you're physiologically reacting
shutting
to this.
down, shutting down. The whole machine is shutting down, and I feel sick to my stomach because in my mind, this was a lost opportunity where if I would have broke my rule of being patient, that I would have found out that this person was missing. But again, I didn't know that this person was missing at the time, that it was the person I spoke to was one and the same. So over the next 4 days, because I was on days off for like 4 or 5 days, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I remember cooking up a couple of eggs as fast as I could and just swallowing it. And it didn't last long in the system. Either I vomited it back up, and I'm like, okay, listen, I got to deal with this. Like, I can't just sit here and let my mind go crazy. So what am I going to do? We got body cams. So on my 5th day off, because I was averaging 2.5 hours of sleep, I was gagging. My kids are like, Dad, do you got the COVID? I'm like, I think I got the COVID, bud. So I go in and I pull up. They need to identify, because this particular person that was in the newspaper that had been missing, the photo was disclosed to the entire district and within the city, so that if we come across that person, then we can do something about it. And then I pull up my body cam, and even though I can only see, like I can literally only see like the nose and the eyes, and I zoom it in and I look side by side, instantly get sick, because I know what happens. First off, this young lady's younger. Like at the time she told me she was 16, but it turns out she was 14 or 15. And I was like, she's fresh to the street. I'd never seen her before.
Yeah.
So that tells me I know what's like. I've seen the faces of meth. Like we've all seen that email, the faces of meth. Well, it's different now because it's not meth, it's opiates. Opiates are infinitely worse, and then they're mixed with benzos and all these kinds of things. Like I know what is possibly in the future for this young lady. And so I just
So
did this.
you see this article in the newspaper, you know you've had an interaction with this person, and was the feeling that you felt, was it guilt?
Oh yeah, because had I run her at the time and had I pushed, the smoking bylaw infraction, I would have figured out who it was, and then I could have done something about it. The problem is that, well, first off, I did find out after the fact that they were one and the same. But there was no warrants out for this person. They were. I found out that they were a chronic runaway, and so when I came back to work on no sleep and no food, I probably lost 5 or 8 pounds over those 5 days. I made sure that photo was disseminated amongst my team, amongst all the other teams, amongst all the teams in the district, et cetera, et cetera. And thank God I found out, about, I don't know, 10 days or 6 days or 4 days thereafter that she was found. The problem, Ange, is that it didn't give me any relief.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening now is then it was just like whack-a-mole. It's like, okay, where else could you have potentially done a better job?
Yeah.
And then because you have met all these people and you've downloaded all of their traumas, and the thing about trauma is that when you get up close to a person, you can see it, you can feel it, and you can smell it. It is horrible.
So you have this was sort of like a catalyst for you. So to a mental illness.
Mudslide.
Yeah.
Mudslide.
So because of this incident with Katana or whatever, like whatever her actual real name was, you recognize that you had been downloading a bunch of trauma, and you physiologically, I think that was the most interesting thing when you told me this story a while ago, was like the physical pain that you felt. So after your days off, you figured this out. Even after she's found and she was
Did
okay.
not decrease one bit.
So your body, like, tell me what happened to your health?
I knew that I was broken. 100% I was broken. I knew because like I'm fit, as you know, the fit life is all about that. So I knew that whatever I was experiencing, because it came on instantly, it was horrific headaches. Couldn't feel my arms and legs. I was nauseous 24/7, and I couldn't sleep. And then
But you were still working. You were going back to work
for one set.
Yeah.
For one set. And my partner at the time, I remember in the last set before I went off, she's like, "What's going on with you?" And I didn't even hear her. I didn't even hear her because I was stuck in a mental movie where in my mind I could have done a better job. So ultimately, in the end, big thanks to Sergeant Robin Schweitzer, because I gave her a call on a Sunday when I was due to come back on a Monday, and I'm like, "Sarge, I'm broke." And
how did that feel? Like, you're kind of like the cop's cop, dude's dude. You, like you say, you're a strong guy. You're in the gym. You're working out. You're a man's man.
broken,
You got 2 sons.
1,000% broken. When I look back on it, Ange, I think of the old Duster movies. I should not be here. I'm glad that I am, and you're a big reason for that. Anyway, fortunately for me, I was well supported. Sergeant Schweitzer, I told her, I'm like, "Boss, I'm broke. I have to do some stuff." So I went and I saw my doctor. They wrote me off, and then that's when the big road really began, because all these memories started coming back. I had to lie to my kids at the same time because they're young. They don't need to know that daddy's not feeling good. As far as they knew, I was just working from home, so it worked out really well.
So you had a supervisor that you felt that you went to, and you said, like, you recognized it in yourself.
Called her up on the phone, said, "Boss, broken, cannot come in."
Right.
And she was incredibly supportive. Over the next 30 days, actually, like she did all my paperwork for me, and we would meet in the parking lot, and I would sign it. And I was giving her the gears. I'm like, "Don't you give away my spot. I'll be back in a week." She's like,
So what
"Sure,
so now you've made this decision to go off work, which is not easy.
"Oh,
It's not
it was
easy.
terrible. I was ashamed."
Okay, yes. So you're ashamed, you go off work, you feel guilt, not only for what happened with that person,
But for leaving my team.
Now you feel shame for leaving your team. So now you're off work. What's going on for you while you're off work?
First 30 days, like I was stuck. I wasn't sleeping. The second I would get up, all the memories would come back. And as soon as I would overcome one memory, it was like whack-a-mole, a brand new one would come up. And I got situated with a cop whisperer. So what I did is I called our psych services. Little did I know that we were going to pump that as a Calgary advantage. Amazing psych services section that we have. Shout out to Susan James. She's amazing. Anyway, I was able to get a hold of them. They gave me an agency. They actually gave me a person to call, but I was completely out of it. I just called the agency, and then I ended up getting the person, the clinician, who I have described to you in the past as, like, she's a cop whisperer.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't for God, my wife, the cop whisperer, Christiana Frinsen, KJ from Wayfound, big shout out to Wayfound as well, and you, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I 1,000% should have been swinging from a poplar, but I had
So I
all
actually
the right
want to talk
things set
about
up.
that. You sort of make light of that, but you were genuinely considering suicide.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah. So like you feel so much trauma and so
Yeah.
much pain. And when we first
It was the physical pain.
Yeah, so do you feel okay talking about that?
Yeah. No, so like it's for me, the way that the cop whisperer KJ explained it to me, that all of my stuff that I had to deal with, it all just went out to my limbs. I forget the word that she used for it, but it affected my body, and the headaches were the most horrific things in the world. Constantly feeling like I was going to be sick. I couldn't eat, couldn't even drink a beer. I couldn't do any of that stuff, and none of that stuff was working. I'm losing weight. And then, as you know, when you don't eat and you don't sleep and you got all this stuff that you're trying to deal with, it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. I remember walking out, getting out of the house and going out for a walk around the pathway system around a pond/swamp, not far from my place, just to get that cold in my face, just to try and calm down. And like the physical pain, I've never experienced anything like that in my life. Just like the actual pain. There's no pill. Like I would have much rather have had 2 broken legs,
Yeah.
because at least I knew that if I pop a couple pills or whatever, it's actually going to go
And
away.
nothing was making it feel better.
Nothing worked, and I was losing weight. Like I'm a skinny ginge anyway, but it like I lost a lot of weight. Like I went down to 152 pounds, and my walk around weight right now is right around 175. So that's not a lot, but you know,
Yeah.
there's not much muffin top to take off. Ange.
So while you were off, and you were off for almost a year?
11 months
11 months.
from when I went off. I did all my work with KJ for about 5 months, because the CPS
Yes.
has an amazing reintegration program.
And this was specifically for members who have gone off for
Civilian and sworn, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it was originally developed for members who were involved in officer-involved shootings.
Yeah.
But Mike Huskins and the amazing work that he did created this reintegration program to bring members back to work in a healthy way who have experienced some sort of trauma.
Yeah.
So you talk about the work you did in reintegration. What did you do? Like, what does that mean, work for
So
reintegrating?
what ends up happening, so for me, the millennial word is trigger. I don't even like that word, but where I reacted the most was if there was a population of people, typically the vulnerable community, and particularly women, and in certain areas downtown where I know that all this bad stuff that's actually happened, those are my areas. So ultimately what they had to do is they had to begin to re-expose me to that life downtown, and being able to see that stuff.
You have made the decision to go off work, and now you're trying to fight to get back to work, and at the same time you get diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Yeah, so I actually think that it was a blessing, because I wouldn't have gone off, and that's why I do believe that it was all divine intervention. I had to make the decisions. I had to make the decision to do the hard work, but part of being off was I had to go get a blood test. The PSA was high, and then I found out that I had
What's PSA? I don't know. Maybe that's a dumb question.
some kind of antigen, but it's
Okay.
it's basically a marker which can indicate prostate cancer.
Okay.
So I went in, I had the biopsy, confirmed that it was prostate cancer, and then we caught it early. Thank goodness. I had the surgery, and
And this is while you're off going
Yeah.
through trying to
Yeah.
navigate this your mental health at the same time.
yeah, fortunately for me, I had done a lot of the hard work with the cop whisperer, KJ.
Yeah.
For the first 5 months. And then the way it works is at least for my return, is that it came back in the 3 episodes. The first third was you deal with your clinician, you identify issues, you do all the stuff that is disgusting and gross with them, and then eventually you learn to overcome that. And then after that, you have the option to go to the reintegration team, which I did.
So I just want to interrupt you there, sorry,
Yeah.
BM, but I think one of the things that we sort of talked about a little bit, but the reintegration involves that exposure therapy. So you talked about going and actually like physically putting yourselves
Yep.
in challenging situations
Yep.
that are going to bring on
Under
some
the direction
feelings.
of your doctor or your
Yeah.
or
Could
your-
you describe
your
a couple
clinician.
of like different types of exposures that you would have to do?
Yep. So for example, it was right near Central Memorial Park. I couldn't even go within 4 blocks of there.
Yeah, and
So we would start out at 4 blocks.
yes, and just sit there.
Yep, and then just sit there. But I had a coping mechanism, because Mike Huskins is a very easygoing guy, very easy to talk to, and you can have those types of like those copper conversations with. And I would just talk to him nonstop.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, "BM, pump your tires. We're supposed to be quiet here." KJ said to be quiet. Soak in the suck. So
Yeah.
I actually call that reintegration experience like Buckley's. It tastes horrible, and
And it works.
but it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's where it starts, and then you slowly work your way in. And then if you're having a few bad days, then you might go back out. Then you'll get out of your vehicle and walk around, and then slowly over time, you start getting right into the area where you're supposed to be, and then you're walking around. Now you're interacting with people. Now you're talking with people. But It's
And the whole time you're monitoring sort of, and the person that you're working with from
Yep.
reintegration is monitoring. So
Yep.
you could start just by like maybe driving downtown, and
Yep.
that's as far as you go that day.
That's exactly what happened, and then you sort of monitor yourself, and it's in consultation with your therapist. So all they're doing is they are the hands and the feet and the mechanism of your return to work through the reintegration program. But the person who determines the speed, flow, and direction is your therapist,
Yeah.
based on the
And
communications that go back
everyone's
and forth.
exposure therapy sessions would be very different and very individual, right? So like if you were involved in say it was some sort of traumatic car accident, then
Yep.
maybe it would be, being in a police car. Maybe it would be, if you were involved in an officer involved shooting, maybe it's just sitting at the range for a little bit, listening to the firearms training or something like that. Or if you were, it could be just sitting in a crowd. So everyone's exposure therapy is very individualized
Yep.
to the person.
100%, and their clinician. And I came through, and like one story that I have to share, and this is to pump your tires a little bit, and I won't do it in public, so you're lucky that you're getting it recorded now, is that I told Sergeant Huskins at the time, I was like, the only way that this is going to work is it has to be perfect. It has to be perfect.
And by having it work, you mean coming back to work?
Yeah. I have to have a perfect scenario to come back. And I said, I need a unicorn. I have to find a unicorn. I have to find a unicorn opportunity where I can come in and again, I'll have to redo all the hard work, but I need a perfect scenario. And so the first part was perfect. I had Robin. Second part was perfect. I had Husky. And third part, it turns out to be you, because Husky comes back and he tells me, this is before I'm coming back. He's like, yep, I hooked you up a spot in recruiting. You're going to go work for Angie Tetley. And I went in her office, and guess what was in there? And everybody else that knows you, your office is plastered. It looks like
there are 1,000 unicorns in my office. So when Mike told me, because Mike told me that story, he's like, I got this guy, he's had a rough time, but he needs to come back to work and he needs a soft place to land. And he was sort of looking around my office. He's like, you would not believe what he said to me. He's like, I need a unicorn. And as soon as I walked into your office, I was like, oh my gosh, like it's crazy.
he's home.
Yeah, he's home. So,
And then of course,
so I did want to mention
go
though
ahead.
too, like when you came back from reintegration, you did come back with restrictions,
Yeah.
right? Like there are certain, so people, we work very hard to get people back to work as close to patrol as possible. But some people, like because of the level of their injury, their psychological injury, they might not get it as close to patrol as they want.
At first, I was only coming back a couple hours a day, 2 days a week. And then over the course of the next 3, 4, 5 months, well, actually after I think about 2 months, I was back full time. And the great thing about this, and then again, the unicorn opportunity, is that when I was ready to take on more challenges, because I like to be busy at work, as you know, spin my tires a lot, but I have to be busy.
I also wanted to mention too that you've actually helped a number of members just because you've seen it in their face. So can you tell us about how you did that?
I can see a sick cop from a mile away. And the reason why that's so important to me, Ange, is because I don't want people to experience what I experienced, because it was horrific. Like I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, worst boss. I wouldn't do that. So I see it as a responsibility like I had when I was on the street. But the benefit here, Ange, is that now I can see it, I can identify it. I'm not a clinician, I get it, but I have experienced it, and so I can offer that insight, and it's been really, really helpful, and I'm super proud of that. I talked to you about the starfish beach story, where basically dude's walking, or gal is walking along the beach, and they grab starfish that have been washed up on shore after a storm, and they're throwing them into the water, and there's a whole bunch of them. And person B comes by later and says, why are you doing that? You can't possibly make a difference. And the answer is, but I was able to make a difference for that one.
Yeah.
So that's how I plan on living the rest of my life, and hopefully it works out.
BM, I wanted to thank you so much. I think we'll wrap it up here. I think it was, it was very hard for me to hear your story, because you have this amazing personality and you're so out there, but to think that the work that you do is going to help other people.
If I can do it, other people can do it. Let's go.
Thank you. That's a great way to shut it off. Let's help each other, look out for each other, and look out for ourselves.
Always. Thank you,
Amazing.
Ange.
Thanks, BM.